Hey guys, how's it going? It's Thursday, September 13th, 2018, and I got a chance to give one more video before the weekend, so I figured why not. It seemed like I was going on a little bit last night, but there's still a little bit more to talk about, or maybe clarify my position at the very least. So we were talking about the interest category here, so this is probably the biggest discussion I've seen in a while. Of course, it's only happening between myself and Scott, but we seem to be the ones right now. Amongst others, this is being talked about, I think, on the Southwest servers or Southwest forums as well, amongst themselves. I haven't checked their latest updates today, but what I wanted to do basically is respond to some of this. So I did a video yesterday, and then Scott announced about his video anytime tonight. I don't think I'm going to have time tonight. I may have time come Sunday to possibly join a server, but just joining a server for the sake of joining or seeing others, or common goals and all that other stuff, it's a lot different now, at least for me. For me, I could join a Southwest server at any time on a Tuesday or Thursday or even between, and it would be just like the old days of version 1 when they're not running a session. You get lucky if you're with some people, you get to do stuff, you have common goals. Now, mind you, they don't run as many mainline train, or they don't run any mainline trains except in a session. So the way, and that's how I want to be very clear on this. This is how RTS California was running at the end as well. That was something that kind of came as an idea of mine, and basically got followed through with Mike for version 2, and that idea stuck with the Southwest server. There's been a lot of thoughts as far as how I would go about doing things differently or whatever. Now, of course, the last time I did anything Run8, other than going through last night and taking a look around, I still don't miss it. But I'm thinking about it. But for me, there still has to be a lot of communication, and just between Scott and I don't know how much just Scott and I can do, honestly. I mean, I'm open to things, but at the same time, I don't know how long just Scott and I could run. I could run Run8 at any time and run the dispatcher. It's not a point of that. Or I can go on any time and do anything, really. It's not a point of that. And yeah, Scott and I can do things. That's not really what I'm thinking as far as different things. So anyways, let me get into the reply here. Somehow wish we could get back to that popular time in Run8's infancy. The days when RTS was the place to be. Was great having all sorts of members along with a variety of things to do. A little of everything, offering someone for everyone, no matter our interests or talent. For me personally, at the time, this was good, but it got old. It didn't get old right away. What happened, and I'll look at my reply here. There was a time where it worked, but Run8 evolved beyond that, I believe. My best memories was January after version 2 came out with the software server, or the Southwest server. At this point, it had not gone too big yet. Could be dispatched by only 2 dispatchers and fully dispatched 100% capacities. Not every industry, if I recall, was being switched, but a real sense of purpose existed. Most of all, we did it running 24/7 stop clock with sessions, just what I talked about a few minutes ago, and what's still being done with the Southwest. It wasn't too long after that the workload got too much when we took on specialization, and I think that was my idea. So I've had a lot of ideas that I've later regretted. Specialization, I think, was one of them, because it became more of a job. Once you specialized in something, or you had a certain region that was yours or whatever, it got very, unless you had people, a good group of people that you can delegate work to, and it was being done, it would basically fall on your hands. So you needed a nice pool of people to rely on. I think having people who, yeah, I don't know so much about the specialization, or even having somebody in charge of a certain area or whatever. I understand it, but I'm not 100% convinced on that at this point, that that's the best idea. At least I felt, and I believe I think I had Barstow for a while. I gave it up. I remember giving it up. And it wasn't too long after that where I just it was starting to become the beginning of the end for me. I went into some of my own things. Well, actually, it wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the beginning of the end for me, and then that just led to other things, and eventually it no longer became part of RTS, just like the Southeast server. So things were changing. So where I see this, as far as why it can't go back to its infancy, and I know some people would like to see it just like that. Really, if you want to look for what Run8's infancy is, go to the Southeast server. I would strongly recommend that. All you have to do is go to the Southeast server, and you'll probably see that happening. Because what's happening on the Southeast server is they don't rely so much, as far as I know, on the dispatching side of things. They're more about pushing the actual work. And if they run a train, they run a train great. If they do, they do. If they don't, they don't. Their focus is primarily on moving cars. They're not worried about having capacity for dispatching. They're not worried about simulating any kind of, sessions, let's say, as far as I know. At least that's the way I take it. So the Southeast server does a really good job at that. Now, I don't know what the Southwest server is going to do. I haven't checked the forum. I haven't checked it today. I just, I was with my son. I let him go an hour early because he had karate, and then he was with his mom, and I dropped her off, and I was just like, well, you might as well. It's up to you. I says, I have you till 9, but you might as well go inside if you want. So I could have gone on the Southwest server tonight. I got home early enough, and then I just didn't worry about it because I asked myself, was I interested? Like, no, not really. That's the way that's my take on that. I don't even know if they're running a session tonight, to be quite honest. But it's been a while since I've been on the Southwest. So that's why I remember at the end of version 1, I remember how much it was getting to the point where here's how I look at it. When it was originally just Mojave, and there was a lot of people around, and there wasn't the other routes, there wasn't the other anything, it was just Mojave, everything was focused on Mojave. We offered our own flavor of what Run8 was, and it was probably the only ones that really emphasized the operation in the car forwarding, as far as I recall. A lot of other places tried to please everybody. So there's still a lot of places today that try to please everybody. There's others that do try to do more operations now, but I think they're still behind in what they could do. But that's just my opinion. And just because it's popular doesn't necessarily mean, doesn't mean it's the best thing, or doesn't mean it's the greatest thing since sliced bread either. Popularity usually means there's a bit of diplomacy, there's a bit of give and take for the better good of the community or whatever else. So, so be it. That's just the way it is. So that's where I see, as far as version 1, what happened when new routes started coming was that it not just root regions, but then you had servers. We always had more servers, but when certain things were happening, I remember advertising on Run8 was big. We lost it a couple times due to some personal conflicts that I had with the team. That affected us. There was other things that had gone on. All those things played a role. So that's one of those things where ideally if you can get a bunch of people together and run trains and dispatch, that's great. The problem is trying to get a bunch of people together. Before 24/7, we did do sessions, and we did seem to get a fair amount together at least. But once you went 24/7, it kind of spread out, and things did get done. But then you lost a lot of the interactive bits and pieces. Needle Sub and Cajon came into play eventually, and then it became very diluted. And the lack of AI or the lack of manpower started really showing itself. When version 2 came out, that all changed. Because once version 2 came out, suddenly you now had AI, and trains could run themselves if necessary. You still needed dispatchers, and you definitely needed dispatchers more if you were going to operate with a full schedule. You certainly needed a proper dispatcher. You couldn't just dispatch yourself and dispatch others. So yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know how I could ever see myself going back to that. Personally, it's not for me. Where I vision, if anything, I would like to see. So let's just say, okay, let's play a little game here. And I'm just going to do a whiteboard type thing. So what's the font like? Okay, well, that's not too bad. So I was saying yesterday, I was saying that where I belonged to a model railroad club, you had these positions that would be filled up. Yard master. I'm trying. I forget what other positions there used to be. It seems like there's more. And you could have two-person crews on some of them. So you had two dispatchers. There was a dispatcher 1, dispatcher 2 / Romford operator. There was 4 crews. I think you could have had as many as 5. Might have been a slot for that. I can't remember exactly, but let's just say something along the lines of you have now. I like Run8 servers. I think it is. I can't remember. It's been a while since I've been on it. Is it Run8 servers or Run8 sessions? I think that was the old name. So I guess it was. So if you go to Run8 servers. You know, they got rid of the sessions. I just realized that. I guess it really got to the point where nobody was posting sessions here anymore that they got rid of it. The only thing they have now is community servers. And we're down to 6? Wow. I didn't think we were that low. In fact, the Southwest is not even listed. That's interesting. Southwest was on here. I'm just going to go to the Southwest for a minute. I just want to see if everything is... mainline server available. Okay, so he's starting the... Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. That's pretty cool that he's trying that. So that's interesting. I don't know if that has input. Okay. I may reply to that as well. A lot of these ideas coming with this. I personally, I mean, for me personally, the RTS name doesn't mean anything to me at this point. It is, it is what it was or whatever. It could very well. It's certainly a brand. But as you can see, I took this down back on the 15th of last month. I did have the RTS server up there. They've gotten rid. They've changed this. They got rid of the sessions. Nobody was posting sessions anymore. And what I would like to see in something like this, I'll get rid of that for now. Let me close this up. I'll reply to that later. But so you have something like that, okay? So what I've always felt, and I'm not 100% sure the best way to do it, if you do it with a Google Sheet or if you do it to some kind of sign-up system. But you have people who are interested, who basically, and this has been one of the most difficult things to get people to do. And this is, to me, the only way it works. If you just all of a sudden, out of the blue, say, I'm going to run. Well, that's okay, except I put it this way, okay? I know right now, and I know this doesn't work for everybody. I get it. And stragglers, I think, will always be possible, especially when things get busy or suddenly you're in the mood and you're looking like, holy cow, something's going on. So, my thoughts as far as a server. So a server can be 24/7 or on demand, pending, on request, pending demand. How about that one? So what that means is a server, let's say for example Scott, he's been putting the server up and down, he's been emailing everybody, he's had very little takers. I personally think the issue, at least from what I can tell, is either number one, nobody knows about it, or thinks nothing's going to be happening, or I don't know what. You know, who's dispatching? Is Scott dispatching? Are they looking for dispatchers? See, that part I'm not 100% sure about. And that gets confusing for people, at least from my perspective. I look at that and I say to myself, okay, well, yeah, we can get together and we can talk and chat and try to figure out who wants to do what. But people kind of want to have an idea, I think. At least me, the way I work. I like to know ahead of time. I kind of related to this yesterday because what had happened was a lot of times I'd come onto the Southwest server and I would, and you know something, I will reference this video on that post I just saw, and I will post a message and say that they won't get to see the live version of it, but there will be an archive version of this that will come on. And honestly, to those, you know, whether it be Mike, Ski, I don't know if, I think Ski's back from vacation and we were playing the farm stuff. But, you know, I think the big farms weren't working too much. I'm still interested in the farm simulator. It's just I got to go back to a smaller one. Those big ones, it just takes too long to do for me personally. But it was great when I first was running it. But anyways, enough farm simulator. Let me get back to, I was thinking skiing. I was like, man, yeah, man, he's got to be back from vacation. Anyways, so when I say a server can be 24/7 or on request pending demand, what I like to personally know, as I said last night, I like to have a pretty good idea of what I'm going to be doing ahead of time. Now, that's not always easy or even possible, but at least you may not know what train you're running or what local you're running, but you might have an idea, at least as far as what it is you want to do. Because what happens is, you know, and this is where it gets a little tricky, especially when things are on demand. You kind of know, like when you have sessions, you know when the sessions are, so you know how much time's going to be. You know if you can make it or you can't. So that's always a benefit too. Ideally, if you can have it 24/7 and enough people around the clock, even if time just runs still and nothing's running, or sorry, not time runs still, if things just go down to a crawl or get taken down overnight because there is no overnight demand, or something like that, then that's okay. But then eventually you get a flow of what's happening. So server can be 24/7 or on requests pending demand. So what happens is you have all these particular jobs. So I did the ones up here. Let's change this over. So what would happen? This was the Model Railroad Club. You would sign up. You come to a session, a monthly session, or whatever the hell it was. You signed up. Sometimes you would only be doing the morning of one and then the afternoon of the other, or you were crew one the whole time and you're yard master the whole time, or switching crew the whole time, etc., etc. That was the only difference. But for the most part, some people could only stay half a session. But most of them, they either would switch with somebody halfway because they wanted to mix it up, or especially the dispatcher position, like dispatching the whole session. Our sessions were 3 hours, 1 hour lunch, and then another 3 hours. So in real time, to represent a 4 to 1 fast clock for 24 hours. So yeah, it went by. So let's say for Bakersfield or Mojave Sub. Let's say so Mojave Sub, you would have. I'm gonna start with, let's go with what I was thinking the other night. So you're just we'll call it UP Mojave Sub. So so you got the dispatcher position. You've got train crews, and I'm going to put the letter with S in there. And how many crews there are is, like I said, it's a demand type thing. So you can be a dispatcher, a train crew. I'll put yard crews. That's another one. So yeah, train crews, yard crews, dispatcher. I'm trying to think if there's anything else really. Yard master kind of falls in line with the train crews or yard crews for the most part, I should say. But it's really that simple. So you can go so far as calling it mainline crews. I'm trying to remember regional, local crews. Now, what I'm doing there is so dispatcher so for UP Mojave Sub, you only need one dispatcher. Runs the entire board. Would not include BNSF Mojave east of Mojave. So Main 9 through crews, I'm going to put a utility conductor. Although, you know, now I say as utility conductor, we had quite a few of them going on with the Southwest server. I did quite a bit of that towards the end. And there was constantly, because there's so many trains going, you constantly need a utility conductor. I don't think you need it so much for the other. Local crews, trains that switch local industries. Now notice I'm not talking about hump operators or anything. So something that small, none of them are what I would call required. Ideally, the dispatcher's required, but none of them are 100% required. You could agree to dispatch yourself and run others. So to say dispatch is required, not necessarily, but I'll tell you why that is. Mainline, oh, I will in a bit when I get through what I'm talking about. Mainline through crews, they certainly aren't required. Mainline work crews, I mean, there's a lot of, really none of them are required, but they could eventually, because of supply and demand or work that's available, could make up the requirement or the necessary, or making it necessary for the server or the host to decide whether or not that they are going to run the server. So a user would see this, and anybody who has access or is interested in running on a server, sign a request form for time window and job above interested in. Okay. Information updates to a table that everyone can see. Okay. So you sign a request form, a time window, and a job that you're interested in. The information is updated to a table that everybody can see as well as the host. So the host would indicate based on the demand on this same table if they are running the server or adjust due to lack of demand. So in other words, you know, let's say, because eventually Scott, you know, he's going to run if he's interested and not bored. He posts something that basically says he's going to run so and so, or run some mainline trains or something, and you could do more than one. Not necessarily dispatcher. You can, if you're going to do a mainline through train, you're going to need a dispatcher, but or you can dispatch yourself. you don't have to run every train, whatever. So within 24 hours of actual actual server time running, the following jobs would take place. So let's just say I don't know how many trains there are. Let me start with the locals first. So you got the monolith local. Or wait. Yeah. Is it monolith? Yeah. Or I guess it would be the Tehachapi turn, or whatever the heck it was. Turn, Oak Creek turn, Lone Pine turn, and then there's another one that goes. I can't remember what the hell it goes. I'm just going to call it. So in Bakersfield you have the SJVR. Oh shoot! What are some of the? I can't even remember the. SJVR Kern Junction, SJVR Magadan, SJVR Oil City, SJVR, I don't know, West, or whatever it's called. I can't remember. And then you have the Edison local. Now you can see a lot of these. So what happens is those locals alone so I'm looking at the Oak Creek. Low. Okay. I'm just paying like 1 hour to get together to Tehachapi. Let's say 4. I'll call it 4 too. I think that one's a 6-hour one. Let's call that 4. SJVR Magadan maybe 1 hour if it just goes up there to switch. So 10, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22, 23, 24. Approximately 29 to 36 hours daily. Okay. Now, so if you're running those locals and you're running daily service, let's say that takes about 29 to 36 hours daily. Now, suddenly, this is where it gets, and this is why I originally was starting with the this one right here. When I started up the last rendition of Mojave Sub, I didn't worry about Bakersfield. So I didn't worry about Edison. I didn't worry about SJVR. I didn't worry about. I just worried about these ones. So that was only 10 hours worth. And what I did from there was I ran the main lines, did whatever. So I had a nice little balance of running main lines. I could dispatch as well, and that's the other thing too. Some of these you can very much dispatch and run another job. No, it doesn't. It's not a problem. Only one needed. I should put. So it can be done by other train crew. In other words, you don't have to have a dedicated dispatcher. You can have if it's busy enough, if you think it is, but really, I don't think it is. I think it's certainly possible, but in this case, it's not really necessary. I mean, as a dispatcher, you could be a dedicated dispatcher if you want. Say for example, like for me personally, like say I got things to do around the house, but I do want to dispatch. Well, I would sign up for the dispatcher position, because what that allows me to do is I can still dispatch, but then I can go and get up and do things. I can do a little bit of rail fanning as well. There's all kinds of things I can do, and there are nights like that for me. There's times where I got things to do. So whereas a mainline, any of the locals or yard crews or stuff like that, you got to be pretty active. I mean, yeah, you can take a break if you're a yard crew or a local crew. Mainline trains, you could always AI, and then like the through crews or whatever, or you can be a utility conductor with the work crew. So with those in mind, you have these locals. Supply traffic would consist of the following. Sorry, I'm thinking. West Colton, Bakersfield. Now I could have it work. Now you see, I'm starting, and I'm not necessarily going prototypical here. I put Works Mojave ? Because if there's some type of interchange or something, I'm just going to say doubt it. So in those cases, you can actually have AI trains. But in some cases, you want it like a utility conductor. So really, when it gets down to that, the for this particular one, I'm just going to call it a utility conductor, because that's all it is. I mean, you can run the train if you want, but then you become a mainline train. But you're basically helping. So that's it. And there's not much as far as utility conductors go. So those are your supply trains. I'm trying to think if there's anything else you can go. You know, you have a bar back 3. So something like that as required. And this is just ideas that I'm coming up with as far as different things. I'm not going to say no fleeting because that doesn't matter. Okay. So the through traffic can be set up to have symbols and random bingo ball picker. If no DS is available, turn the signals off. Train supply. Traffic could represent typical average traffic levels for route. Okay. So really that's it. I mean that is for me how I would start. And this for me, what that does is this. Okay. When I see something like that, and this is of course this is just my opinion and my idea. Now the only reason why I say this particularly works well, as I was going through the various routes last night, I have not seen where any other route at this point would be allowed to be this versatile. The good thing about like when I look at different things, like you can cut up a route or whatever. I mean, like I said, you could do like LA is a huge workload. You're gonna need a lot of people at that point, and in reality, I mean, you could, in theory, push this towards LA, but at the same time, if you're going to run a direct line, say, and I always thought that this may one day, and this is where I started first talking about LA while I was still running regular sessions, was that you could push it towards it. So, I have all the supply traffic. Of course, the key is that the locals have to run. Now, if you're not getting enough people to run the locals, you have a choice. As a host, you can decide to you could annul trains. You could run overlapping demands from the industries so that they don't get ready to pick up within 24 hours. You could also play around with the supply trains and not have them daily or simply on demand or something like that to make it a little bit more manageable. Because one of the worst things, like for me personally, would be as if it all fell on me. Now, ideally, yeah, okay, it could fall on me anyways, and that wouldn't matter. But this gives what this does is, if I was to see something like that, I could say right now, let's say Monday night, I know that on Monday night I can run from 7 p.m. until I'll say 11. I could say, yeah, Monday night I can run 7 p.m. 11. But see, the reason why I won't sign up just for anything is because I want to know. I want to know the parameters. I want to know the route. I want to know what I'm getting myself into. And I think that's a fair thing that everybody who is ever going to sign up wants to know. They want to know what they're getting. So it's one thing to having it open-ended. The problem is if you open-ended, you almost have to have enough people that just come over on the sake of reputation alone. And if you don't have that, they're just going to go to the bigger routes because they know they can basically, do what they want, or they can do pretty much whatever they want on the servers, and know that they're going to see more people. So they'll elect to go to that and see the more people because they're not sure of the structure. If they know what the structure is, then that's where, then there's a story behind what they're doing. So to me, there becomes a purpose and meaning. So that's where I look at it. And the reason why it doesn't work for me in the Southwest, and this is why I go back to the Southwest again, the reason why it doesn't work for me in the Southwest is a lot of times I don't know ahead of time how things are going to work out. Now, if you are the host and you see this and you see people start signing up, that's when, and it's up to people to communicate this. It is essential. If people do not communicate this, and it basically, and it can start with just Scott and I. It could very easily start with Scott and I. If Scott's willing to host a server, and it doesn't have to be on this format. I may be interested in other routes if he's more interested in New York or whatever. I may be interested to try it, just to see. I mean, why not? And see if I like doing certain things. Dispatching's not a challenge. It really isn't. I very little challenge, quite frankly. But there's going to be times where I just want to dispatch, and I'll sign up as so. If I say, for example, well, I'd like to, let's just say I want to be a yard crew dispatcher. So I sign up for Monday as a dispatcher and a yard crew for say 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. on a Monday, knowing that what the structure is, knowing what jobs are available, knowing what's being looked for, knowing what the host's vision is. This is just my ideas. I'm just throwing this out there. This is how I would do it, but that's just me. I'm not saying I'm going to be doing this because I'm not too sure if I want to. Honestly, at this point, I don't want to put it this way. I don't want to go out there and put that I'm putting a server up again, because I've started something and let down, either let down people or just given up too many times. And at some point it gets ridiculous, because I don't know whether or not it would work or whether or not it would be boring. And then we have to have these realistic discussions as far as how it would work. But this is a way to do it. Then you look and you say, okay, but at the same time, you may have some time during weekdays. So let's say I'm just playing the role of Scott, for example. Let's say I'll play the role of Scott. So Scott's likes that idea, and he likes the idea of running one of the local crews. Let's say he likes one of the ideas of running the local crews. Like, I don't know. Let's just say he likes the idea of running the local crews, and he sees that 7 to 11 interest in there, and he thinks, okay, I'm going to go with that. Not only does he go with 7 to 11, but as host, he agrees to put the server. He agrees to have the server up between 7 and 11. At the same time, he's also interested. Like, he wants to take a supper break between, say, 5 and 7. But he's interested in running 1 to 5 the same day, because he's going to be really bored in the afternoon, let's say on Monday. So he's interested in running I'm thinking these things out as I go along. So he's interested in possibly, but he doesn't want to do too much, but he's willing to dispatch, so he puts himself as dispatcher only between 1 to 5. But he knows between 5 to 7 he wants to take a break, watch the news or whatever, have some supper. So he's not going to dispatch for a couple hours. But at the same time, he plans on putting the server up between 1 p.m. and 11 p.m. So he plans on running the clock 10 hours. So out of that 10 hours, he gets enough local work done that would equate to 4 hours work. 4 hours worth. And like I said, if the following locals alone take approximately 29 to 36 hours. So in reality, you need at least 1 to 1.5 locals running at any time that the clock is running, unless you decide not to do a daily. And you don't have to do a daily. You can set the demand twice daily and split that in half. So now it goes down to 18, or you can decide to hold off on, like, you can really get it to the point where the railroads decide, well, they're only going to give every other day service because demand's not high enough. And you can create it. You can actually proto-lance it to say no matter what the prototype is really doing in a particular era or whatever, you're basically adjusting the demand based on what the server demand is. So you don't tie yourself up into a knot by having it do a certain thing. That, to me, a demand-based system, not only are you putting the times that you want to have the server up, but you're actually outlining what it is that you're looking to run. And you can switch. I mean, you can certainly go to different routes and change the routes and all that other stuff if you want, especially because there is 3 routes and you can try different things. But I think keeping it as small as possible, at least this is my opinion, keeping it as small as possible means that you have a lot more flexibility of changing things. That's how I would do things. That's just my opinion only. I'm open to anything. It's just I need to know, and I don't want to do it just for the sake of doing something. I want to be clear on this. I don't want to do something for the sake, at least how I am at Run8. I haven't done this in a month. I don't miss it. I honestly don't miss it. And I'm spending time tonight just because I know there's talk about it. I know I've been. Here's the thing, though. The fact is, number one, I don't miss it. And number two, though, the other fact is I've been bored out of my freaking mind on Mondays and Wednesdays, where I've been falling asleep. Last night I was out doing, a little bit of actual ATCS work and running trains and what have you, or not running trains, watching trains and trying to set up my antennas and stuff like that. But most nights I have, and the only reason this week I got lucky because my son forgot his computer over the weekend and then he didn't bring it home Tuesday, and I was able to go out and do things. So I had that opportunity in that time. But when you format things this way and you have a demand-based system, now suddenly things could ultimately people, number one, you don't stress out the people who are who are doing a lot of the background work. You're not stressing the people who are running the server. At the same time, I mean, if you're running server, it's you're gonna have you might have a password or some type of thing going on. You don't want people coming on who's gonna just come on whenever, or you can set it up however you want. But that's how I would do for me personally. Again, that's just my own opinion. There's a lot of great routes out there, and this is the other thing in popularity. And this is another thing, and I stress this with popularity. When you have a size of California, the size it is right now, especially with all the people who own places like LA, who own Seligman Sub. Not everybody owns Seligman, but there's a lot of people that do, who own, Needles, obviously. Even the main route. I mean, you might think of Barstow and the Hump. I mean, I love the Hump and all that stuff. Doesn't work too well with my computer for whatever reason, but anyways, I'm not even including Barstow in this. I'm not even including the BNSF section. I'm just including the UP Mojave Sub. But that's how I would do it. And I would spawn trains out of, if I was to do that, I would spawn trains out of, and I mean, I could potentially do it. I could potentially host. But it's how you set up the system. And that's the tricky part, is trying to get like a form or like a registry type thing set up for the request. I haven't had too much success of getting people to do this. I've tried it before. And trying to get people to do it either they're confused or they don't want to commit, or a lot of them, they just want to come on because, suddenly they feel wow, there's nothing on TV. I think I'm going to run trains. That's just not how I usually like to do things. I like to plan my evening. I like to know ahead of time. But the other people, they will plan on the spur of the moment, or they have a list of things that they could do, and whether or not they do Run8 is dependent upon other factors, like things that fall through or things that they suddenly get bored of, so they don't commit themselves to anything. It makes it very difficult to plan. Like when you know how many crews you have, then suddenly you can decide to host a server, or if you find that you're running too many locals as a host, and you're getting tired of running locals, and you're the only one that seems to be moving them, and you can't get people to run locals. Well, I think that was the issue. I from what I understand, is happening in the Southwest. Well, that's because there's so many freaking industries, and not everybody wants to run industries. Some people just want to run trains. Some people just want to have variety. They don't want to. They don't want to. I mean, I know one thing. I mean, and I know, I could have said no many times. I was asked to do utility conductor, but towards the end there, I was doing a lot of utility conductor because there's just so much. And eventually, it was just like, I'm tired of doing utility conductor. I didn't say that, but I was thinking to myself, it's just like, man, I mean, I had no idea what I was going to do going into the Southwest server sessions, because I really don't know where. I have no idea. I couldn't get a flow or an idea, even though I knew there was 3 hours. I really didn't know what trains would be ready, if they would be ready, if somebody would have ran them a day prior because they ran 24/7 on a stop clock. I'd have no idea. But had I seen what was going on, or had an idea ahead of time of where boats would be in the schedule, then I could take a look and say, yeah, there's a particular train. You can go further than that. Like, I mean, maybe you can dive down and request a specific local. Like, it's going to be scheduled or coming up or on or available. Like, say all those locals have an available time based on the waybill system. And let's say, the host basically is telling you how much time is left. And basically will say when the earliest that will be available, and they'll list it. They'll update that. There's not too much information to change there. It's just you're going in and saying available so-and-so time. What that does is now all of a sudden it's just like, oh, I want to run the Tehachapi turn because it's going to be available. Suddenly, the more information you have, and the more automated that information is due to, like sheets and stuff like that or other ways, the more information that is there, the more information people have, at least for me personally, the more I can make an informed decision as to what I want to do. And then I can say, maybe I would like to run that tonight, or maybe I wouldn't. That's just some ideas that I thought I would throw. It's like 9:30 right now. I'm going to call it for now. I'll actually post this over on the Southwest Forum as well. And I'll post this in a reply tonight as a template. Basically, what I would personally do myself. That doesn't mean, everybody's going to have their own ideas, but that's what I would personally do. I can't emphasize that enough. Everybody's going to have their own ideas as to what works and what routes they like, and that's the thing. Even though there's 3 routes, there's 3 routes, there's a lot of those routes. And some people are going to miss not running boron locals. Some people are not going to, some people would miss running Barstow. Some people would miss Needles because it's included. I mean, I guess there's parts of Needles that, I don't see why, but you know, there's not that much appealing to me about needles. Um, you know, it's fun when you have a lot of traffic and overtaking, but then the traffic levels get too busy. You need at least a second dispatcher, and it's just like, yeah, nah, it gets a little crazy. Add Cajon in there, and then, you know, just like, ugh, forget it. But that's the problem. If you want to appeal to everybody, there's going to be people who like Cajon. So you got to kind of weigh in between what you can appeal to and what you're willing to do, and don't count on being a high demand. Even once you give some ideas or ask other people. So, but we'll see. I'll post this message as well too over on the Southwest. I don't think they're going to be going this way or even close to this, but I'll post this over there anyways, and because they have a thread up there now, and I think, yeah, okay, I'll post this over and see if that sparks some interest. But for now, that's something between Scott and I that we're talking about, and we'll leave it as that. And you're welcome to come over to the RTS forums and discuss further if you want. This is getting into the start of my weekend. I'll be back around Sunday. I don't know what I'm doing Sunday afternoon after 3 o'clock or 3:30ish or so yet. That remains to be seen. So yeah, I talk about Monday. Really, my Sunday starts. I really don't know what's going on Sunday yet. So anyways, that's it for now, guys. Hope you enjoyed that. If you got any thoughts, ideas, or suggestions, let me know on the forum or whatever. And like I said, I gotta get the communication out there. It's nice that people are viewing. It's nice that people want to participate in servers or they want to do certain things, but communication is very essential. And there's no reason why I think a lot of servers can kind of get together and become a little bit more powerful too. That's the way I look at it, but it doesn't work for everybody, and you know, that's just the way things are. I mean, Southwest has 2 servers going right now. They got another trial server or something going on. But anyways, that's all for now. I'll talk to you guys later. Take it easy.